My name is Eleanor. I am 68 years old, and I never thought the day would come when my own family would leave me to starve to death in my own home. But that is exactly what happened. And it all started with a foolish fall, a gesture of kindness that I accepted without thinking, and a daughter-in-law who turned out to be far worse than I ever imagined. When my daughter Sarah walked through that door and found me sitting in the kitchen, weak, trembling, having not eaten a decent meal in days, she screamed something that still echoes in my ears. "Mom, why are you sitting there hungry? I just dropped off $3,000 worth of groceries yesterday." And then my daughter-in-law, Jessica, with that smile that I now recognize as pure malice, replied with pride. I took everything to my mother. It was at that moment that my life took a turn I never expected. But for you to understand how I got there, I need to tell you everything from the beginning, because this story did not start with hunger. It started with love, with sacrifice, and with the naivety of a mother who only wanted to see her children happy. 3 years ago, I lost my husband, Arthur. It was quick, a massive heart attack one Sunday morning while we were drinking coffee in the backyard. From that day on, the house felt too big, too quiet. But I kept going, as I always did. I had my Social Security checks, modest but sufficient. I had my routine, walking through the neighborhood park every morning, preparing my meals calmly, seeing my neighbors on Wednesdays to play bridge. My children, Michael and Sarah, had each built their own lives. Michael married Jessica 5 years ago, and since then I saw him less and less. He always had excuses. Work, Jessica's commitments, the distance. I understood it, or at least that is what I told myself. Children grow up, they form their own families. It is natural. Sarah, my youngest daughter, was different. Divorced, a fighter, she had built her own business consulting firm. She traveled constantly, but always found time to call me. "Mom, do you need anything?" "Mom, I am going to transfer money for groceries." "Mom, I am coming to visit you this weekend." She was my emotional rock, although I never told her that in so many words. I did not want her to feel obligated. I was independent, or so I believed. I paid my bills, I kept my house clean, I cooked my own meals. At 68 years old, I still felt capable of everything. Until one October afternoon, everything changed. I was hanging some curtains in the living room, sand-colored curtains that I had bought that same week because the old ones were already very faded by the Sunday. I climbed onto a chair, stretched my arm to reach the bracket, and the chair wobbled. I tried to grab onto something, but it was useless. I fell on my side, and I heard the crack of my right wrist before feeling the pain. The pain was blinding. I lay there on the floor, crying, unable to move. I do not know how much time passed until I managed to drag myself to the phone and call Michael. Jessica answered. "What happened, Eleanor?" Her voice sounded annoyed, as if I had interrupted her during something important. I explained between sobs. There was a long silence. "We are on our way," she said finally, and hung up. They took me to the emergency room. A fractured wrist, the doctors said. I would need a cast for 6 weeks and physical therapy afterward. I would not be able to use my right hand for anything. Cooking, cleaning, dressing myself, everything would be a challenge. The doctor looked at me with concern. "You live alone, ma'am." I nodded. "You are going to need help during these weeks." It was then that Michael spoke up. We were in the hospital waiting room, me with my arm in a cast, feeling useless and scared. "Mom, Jessica and I have been talking. You cannot stay alone in this condition. We are going to move into your house temporarily to take care of you." My heart filled with gratitude. My son, my Michael, was offering to take care of me. Jessica was by his side, nodding with a smile that at that moment seemed sweet to me. "Of course, Eleanor. It is the least we can do. You have always been there for us." I felt tears welling up in my eyes. "Thank you, children. You do not know how much this means to me." I called Sarah that same night. She was on a business trip in Houston. "Mom, are you sure? I can cancel everything and fly back tomorrow to take care of you." But I did not want to be a burden. "No, honey, Michael and Jessica are already going to stay with me. You focus on your work. I will be fine." I heard her hesitation on the other end of the line. "Are you sure, Mom? Because I can." "I am sure, sweetheart. Do not worry." The first few days were strange. Michael and Jessica arrived with 4 large suitcases. "It is only for a month and a half, maximum 2, said Michael as they took the suitcases up to the guest room. Jessica walked around the house with an expression I could not interpret. She touched the furniture, opened the kitchen cabinets, looked inside the refrigerator. "Eleanor, I see you have a lot of things accumulated here," she said, pointing to the pantry. "We are going to have to organize this better if we are all going to be living together." I nodded, grateful. I thought it was considerate of her to want to help with the organization. The first week was almost normal. Jessica cooked, although not the dishes I was used to eating. Everything was very spicy, very different. But I did not complain. Michael worked from home in my small study, and I passed most of the day in my bedroom, trying not to bother anyone. Sarah called every day. "How are you, Mom? Are they taking good care of you? Do you need me to send you anything?" And I always answered the same thing. "Everything is fine, honey. Do not worry." I did not want to worry her. I did not want to admit that I was already starting to feel uncomfortable in my own home. It was in the second week when I noticed the first change. I walked into the kitchen early one morning, looking to make myself some tea. Jessica was putting away grocery bags. A lot of bags. "Good morning, Eleanor," she said to me without looking up. "I went to the supermarket early." I smiled. "That is great, dear. Did you need money?" "I can," she interrupted me. "Do not worry. Michael paid for everything." I opened the refrigerator to take out the milk, but I did not find the one I always bought. There was a different brand, a cheaper one. The fruit that I liked was not there either. In its place were things I did not remember asking for. "Jessica, did you see where the apples I had went?" She closed the cabinet with a sharp slam. "Oh, Eleanor, those apples were already very old." I threw them out. "These ones I bought are fresher, but I had bought those apples just 3 days before. They were not old." I did not say anything. I just nodded and went back to my room with my tea, feeling a small knot in my stomach that I could not explain. The days began to feel heavier. My wrist hurt constantly, and every time I tried to do something for myself, Jessica appeared with that voice that seemed kind, but hid something else. "Eleanor, let me help you. That is what we are here for." And I would sit down again, feeling increasingly useless, increasingly small in my own house. The meals changed drastically. Before, I ate oatmeal with fruit for breakfast, had a homemade soup or stew for lunch, and something light for dinner. Now, Jessica decided everything, and the portions she served me were getting smaller and smaller. "Eleanor, at your age you do not need to eat so much. It is bad for digestion," she would tell me while placing a plate in front of me with just a little bit of rice and a tiny piece of chicken. I would look at the plate and feel my stomach growl, but I did not dare ask for more. I did not want to seem ungrateful. They were there taking care of me, sacrificing their comfort for me. The least I could do was not complain about the food. One afternoon, while Jessica was on the phone, I heard part of her conversation. She was talking to someone named Brenda. "Yes, Mom, I brought you what you asked for. It is all in the car. I will stop by tonight to drop it off." There was a pause. "No, do not worry. There is enough here for both houses. The old woman almost never eats anyway." I felt a chill run down my spine. The old woman? Was she referring to me? I stood still in the hallway, not daring to move. Jessica continued. "Besides, Michael does not notice anything. He thinks everything I buy is for here." She laughed, a laugh that froze my blood. That night, when I went to the kitchen to find something to eat because I had remained hungry after dinner, I found the refrigerator almost empty. The cheese I had seen in the morning was no longer there. The ham neither. The fruit Jessica had bought had disappeared. Only some wilted vegetables and a half-finished carton of milk remained. I opened the pantry. The cereal I liked was gone. The cookies I always had for tea had disappeared. There was only rice, pasta, and some cans of beans. My heart began to beat faster. What was happening? Where had all the food gone? I made some tea and took 2 saltine crackers I found in the back of a cabinet. I went back to my room feeling confused and, for the first time, a little scared. But I told myself I was exaggerating. Surely Jessica had put the things in another place. Surely there was a logical explanation. The next morning, Sarah called earlier than usual. "Mom, I am stopping by to see you today. I just got back from my trip, and I want to bring you groceries. Make a list of everything you need." Her voice sounded cheerful, full of energy. I felt an enormous relief. "Oh, honey, do not trouble yourself. Jessica has been buying everything necessary. There was a brief silence. Are you sure, Mom? You are not missing anything. I swallowed hard. I am sure, sweetheart. But Sarah knew my voice better than anyone. Mom, I'm going to stop by anyway. I need to see you. It has been almost 3 weeks since your accident, and we have only spoken by phone. I could not deny it anymore. Okay, honey. I will wait for you here. When I hung up, I heard footsteps behind me. It was Jessica. How long had she been standing there? Her expression was unreadable. Is Sarah coming? She asked with a voice that was too casual. Yes, just to visit for a while. Jessica nodded slowly. That is great. We have not seen her in a while, but there was something in her eyes that made me feel uncomfortable. That afternoon, before Sarah arrived, Jessica did something strange. She went to the grocery store and came back with several bags. She filled the refrigerator with fruit, vegetables, meats, everything that had been missing. When I asked her, she smiled at me. It is just that there were very good sales today, Eleanor. I took the opportunity to do some big shopping. When Sarah arrived, the house seemed normal. The refrigerator full, the pantry organized. My daughter hugged me carefully so as not to hurt my casted arm. Mom, how do you feel? Let me get a good look at you. She examined me with those worried eyes she has had since she was a child. You look thinner. Mom, are you eating well? Jessica appeared before I could answer. Of course she is eating well, Sarah. I take care of preparing all her meals myself. Right, Eleanor? She stared at me intensely. I nodded. Yes, honey. Jessica has been very attentive. It was not entirely a lie. She did cook. It was just that the portions were tiny, and I went hungry most of the time. Sarah stayed for 2 hours. We drank coffee, talked about her work, about her baby who was just 8 months old and whom she had left with a nanny to be able to visit me. Mom, when you are better, you have to come meet your grandson. He has grown so much. I smiled, but inside I felt an inexplicable sadness. I missed my independence. I missed being able to come and go when I wanted. Before leaving, Sarah took me aside. Mom, if you need anything at all, you call me. Okay. There was an intensity in her gaze that I did not understand at that moment. Of course, honey. Do not worry. She hugged me tight. I love you. Mom, take great care of yourself. That night, after Sarah left, I heard Jessica and Michael arguing in their room. The walls of my house are thin. Did you see how Sarah was looking at us? As if we were doing something bad, Jessica said with irritation. You are exaggerating, Michael responded. She is just worried about Mom. Well, let her worry from afar. We are doing enough here. Sacrificing our comfort. Sacrificing their comfort. Those words stuck in my chest like needles. Was I a burden to them? Were they resentful for being here? I went to bed that night unable to sleep, turning everything over in my head. The next day, Jessica went out early with several bags. I am going to see my mom, she told me briefly. I will be back in the afternoon. When she left, I got up and went to the kitchen. I needed to verify something. I opened the refrigerator. Half of the food that had been there yesterday was gone. The chicken Jessica had bought disappeared. The fruit disappeared. The fine cheese disappeared. My hands began to tremble. It was not my imagination. Jessica was taking the food from my house. The food that was supposed to be for me, for my recovery. She was taking it to her mother, and I was being left with nothing. I opened the pantry. Almost empty. Only basic things remained. Cheap things. I felt my legs give way. I sat on one of the kitchen chairs, looking at my casted arm, feeling for the first time that I had made a terrible mistake by letting them stay here. But it was already too late. They were already inside my house, and I was completely at their mercy. The following weeks were a slow agony. Each day that passed, I felt weaker, more invisible in my own home. Jessica did not even feign kindness anymore when Michael was not present. Her orders were curt, her looks full of disdain, and I, with my casted arm and my wounded pride, simply obeyed. Meals became my daily nightmare. At breakfast, Jessica would place a cup of black coffee and 2 saltine crackers in front of me. It is enough to start the day, Eleanor. Remember that you do not do any physical activity. For lunch, a tiny plate with rice and maybe a piece of meat the size of my thumb. Eat slowly so you feel satisfied, she would tell me while she served herself generous portions. And dinners were worse. Many nights there was not even dinner for me. Jessica said that she and Michael would eat something light later, but I saw how they put food away in containers that later disappeared. I stayed in my room, hearing my stomach growl, feeling weaker and weaker. One night, around 11, the hunger was so unbearable that I went down to the kitchen. My bare feet made no noise on the cold tiles. I opened the refrigerator with my good hand, desperately looking for something, anything. I found half a sandwich wrapped in aluminum foil. My hands shook as I unwrapped it. Dry bread, ham that smelled a little strange, but I did not care. I was about to take the first bite when I heard her voice behind me. "What are you doing, Eleanor?" Jessica's voice made me jump. I turned around, and there she was, in the kitchen doorway, arms crossed and an expression of disgust on her face. "Me? I was hungry," I murmured, feeling like a child caught stealing candy. "That was Michael's lunch for tomorrow," she said, approaching. She took the sandwich out of my hands. "If you were hungry, you should have told me at dinner. But you said you did not want anything." It was true. I had said I was not hungry because I did not want to be a bother, because I had seen the look of annoyance on her face when I asked if there would be dinner. "I am sorry," I whispered. "It won't happen again." Jessica put the sandwich back in the refrigerator and closed the door firmly. "Go back to your room, Eleanor. And please, do not go wandering around the house in the middle of the night. It scares me." I returned to my room with tears rolling down my cheeks. That night I did not sleep. The hunger was a constant pain in my stomach, but worse was the pain in my heart. How had it come to this? How had I allowed them to treat me like this in my own home? The days became blurry. I lost count of how many times Jessica went out with full bags and returned empty-handed. "I went to see my mom," she always said. And I just nodded, too tired to ask, too scared to confront her. My body began to show the consequences. It was hard for me to get out of bed. I was constantly dizzy. When I looked in the mirror, I almost did not recognize myself. My cheeks were sunken. My eyes had deep dark circles. My skin looked grayish. I had lost so much weight that my clothes hung off me. Sarah kept calling, but now Jessica answered my phone before I could. "Hello, Sarah." "Yes, your mom is fine." "She is resting right now?" "Yes, she eats very well." "Do not worry." "Sure, when she wakes up I will tell her you called." But she never told me anything. I would discover the missed calls hours later when I managed to get my phone. I tried to call Sarah several times, but something always happened. The phone would run out of battery mysteriously. Or Jessica would appear just as I was dialing. "Who are you calling, Eleanor?" "No one. Just checking the time." And I would hang up quickly, feeling cowardly and pathetic. Michael was like a ghost in the house. He worked locked in the study all day. When he came out, Jessica monopolized him, spoke to him in a low voice, kept him distracted. The few times I tried to talk to him alone, Jessica appeared out of nowhere. It was as if she had a radar. One afternoon I gathered all my courage and knocked on the study door. "Michael, can I talk to you?" My son looked up from his computer. He had dark circles under his eyes. He looked tired. "Sure, Mom." "What's wrong?" I sat in front of him, looking for the right words. "Son, I appreciate so much that you are here taking care of me, but I feel that I am already better and—" I could not finish. Jessica entered like a whirlwind. "Michael, honey, I need you to come here. I have to show you something urgent." She did not even look at me. My son got up immediately. "I will be right back, Mom." But he did not come back, and I stayed there sitting, feeling lonelier than ever. That night I heard another conversation between them. "Your mom was talking to me today," Jessica was saying. "She wants us to leave." "Seriously?" Michael sounded surprised. "But she still cannot fend for herself." "I know. That is why it is so worrying. I think she is having episodes of confusion due to her age. She says weird things, you know? My blood ran cold. She was lying. She was making my own son believe that I was losing my mind. And the worst part is that Michael believed her." "Oh, my mom," I heard him sigh. "Maybe we should talk to a doctor." "I will handle it, honey. Tomorrow I will make an appointment. You do not worry." That was the last straw. I realized that Jessica was not only taking my food, she was taking my credibility, my voice, my dignity, and I had let it happen. I had been too polite, too grateful, too cowardly to defend myself. The next morning, Sarah called again. This time I managed to answer. "Daughter," my voice came out cracked, desperate. "Mom, what is wrong? You sound terrible." Tears began to roll down my cheeks. "Sarah, I need." Jessica snatched the phone from my hand. "Hello. Sarah, your mom is not feeling well today. We will call you later, okay?" And she hung up. She looked at me with those cold eyes. Calculating. "Eleanor, what were you going to tell Sarah? You wanted to worry her with nonsense." "It is not nonsense," I whispered, finding a small spark of courage. "I am hungry. I have not eaten well in weeks. You take all the food to your mother, and you only give me leftovers." Jessica's expression changed. She was no longer feigning kindness. "You know what, Eleanor? You should be grateful. We are here sacrificing our time, our comfort, taking care of you because no one else is doing it. And instead of thanking us, you complain about the food. A woman of your age does not need to eat so much. Furthermore, you are better off this way, lighter, healthier. This is my house," I said with a trembling voice. "And that is my food." Jessica laughed. A dry, cruel laugh. "Your house? Ah, sure. Your house where we are living for free, cleaning, cooking, taking care of you 24 hours a day. You know what? Since you are so aware that this is your house, I want to talk to you about something important." She sat in front of me, crossed her legs, and looked at me as if she were about to close a business deal. "Michael and I have been thinking. If we are going to continue living here, you should pay us. Rent, so to speak, for the services we provide you." I could not believe what I was hearing. Rent? In my own home. Well, think of it as compensation. $500 a month. It is only fair. My Social Security was $1,200. After paying utilities, medicine, and basic expenses, I barely had anything left. And she wanted half. "I do not have that money," I said with a firm voice. Jessica shrugged. "Then I will have to talk to Michael about other options. Maybe it is time to consider a nursing home. There are some very good ones for people your age who can no longer take care of themselves alone. A nursing home." The threat hung in the air like poison. I stood up trembling, holding onto the table. "Get out of my house," I whispered. "Get out now." Jessica stood up slowly. "You know what? I will leave when I feel like it, and you are in no position to demand anything." She left the kitchen, leaving me there, trembling, with tears of rage and helplessness rolling down my face. That afternoon I ate nothing. Not because I did not want to, but because literally there was nothing for me. I stayed in my room, lying down, feeling my body getting weaker and weaker. The following days were the worst of my life. Jessica did not even bother to hide it anymore. She entered and left the house with bags full of food, and when I asked, she did not even answer me. She simply ignored me as if I were just another piece of furniture in the living room. And Michael continued locked in that study, completely oblivious to what was happening under his own roof. Hunger became my constant companion. It was no longer just an annoyance. It was a physical pain that accompanied me every second of the day. My stomach had stopped growling. Now there was only a deep emptiness, a constant dizziness that made me see black spots every time I stood up too fast. One morning I woke up and could not get out of bed. My legs would not respond. My body was so weak that any movement required a superhuman effort. I lay there looking at the ceiling, wondering if this was how it was going to end. Alone, starving, forgotten in my own house, while my son worked a few yards away without knowing that his mother was slowly dying. I managed to drag myself to the bathroom. When I saw myself in the mirror, I let out a stifled scream. The woman staring back at me was a living skeleton. My cheekbones protruded in a grotesque way. My eyes were sunken in dark sockets. My skin hung loose over my bones. I had lost so much weight that I looked like a walking corpse. I touched my face with trembling fingers. When had this happened? When had I become this shadow of myself? I went back to my room crawling. I did not even have the strength to walk those few yards. I got into bed and curled up under the covers, shivering even though it was not cold. I closed my eyes and, for the first time in a long time, I prayed. I prayed for this to end in some way. Any way. That afternoon I heard loud voices downstairs. Jessica was talking on the phone with someone. Her voice went up and down with emotion. I dragged myself to my bedroom door and cracked it open just an inch so I could hear better. Yes, Mom, I know. I told you I am bringing you more things today. There was a pause. No, the old woman does not even notice. She is locked in her room all day. Another longer pause. Then I heard something that froze me to the bone. Look, Mom, between you and me, I think she does not have much time left here. She looks terrible. She almost does not eat. She spends the day lying down. Michael is already talking about nursing homes. As soon as they get her out of here, this house is left for us. It is big. It is in a good neighborhood. We could sell it or rent it out. Imagine the money. My heart was beating so fast that I feared Jessica would hear it from downstairs. They were waiting for me to die or for them to take me to a nursing home to keep my house. Everything had been calculated from the beginning. The help, the concern, everything had been an elaborate lie to steal the only thing I had left. The daughter is a problem, Jessica continued. Sarah calls a lot, but I already told Michael that his mom is confused, that she says things without sense. He believes me. He always believes me. She laughed. That laugh made me nauseous. Yes, Mom, relax. Everything is going according to plan. We just have to wait a little longer. Nature will do its work. I closed the door and let myself fall to the floor. Nature will do its work. They were talking about my death as if it were pending paperwork. As if I were a nuisance that would soon disappear. Tears ran down my cheeks, but this time they were not tears of sadness. They were of rage, a rage I had not felt in my entire life. I dragged myself to where I had my phone hidden under the pillow. I had been keeping it there after Jessica started checking it. With trembling fingers, I searched for Sarah's contact. I dialed. It rang once, twice, 3 times. The person you are calling is not available. I hung up. I dialed again. The same message. One more time. Nothing. Then I saw the time. It was 3 in the afternoon on a Tuesday. Sarah would be in a meeting. She always had meetings on Tuesday afternoons. I let the phone fall onto the bed. What was I going to tell her anyway? Daughter, your brother and his wife are starving me to death to keep my house. It sounded so absurd, so dramatic. Maybe Jessica was right. Maybe I was confused. Maybe I was exaggerating everything. No, I was not exaggerating. The empty shelves were real. My gaunt body was real. The conversations I had heard were real. And if I did not do something soon, I was going to die in this house, in my own bed, while my son worked in the next room knowing nothing. That night I did not go down to dinner. They did not even offer it to me. At 8 at night, I heard a knock on my door. Mom, are you okay? It was Michael. His voice sounded worried. Yes, son, I am just tired. There was a silence. Do you want me to bring you up something to eat? Before I could answer, I heard Jessica's voice behind him. Michael, let her rest. You know she is eating very little lately. It is normal at her age. The footsteps walked away. I stayed there, in the dark, feeling my strength escaping me second by second. I thought of Arthur, my husband. If he were alive, none of this would have happened. He would have protected me. He would have seen through Jessica from day one. But Arthur was not here, and I was completely alone. The next day, something changed. Sarah called early, around 7 in the morning. Jessica was still asleep. I managed to answer. Mom. My daughter's voice sounded urgent. Daughter, I could barely whisper. Mom, yesterday I tried calling you 3 times. What is going on? You have me very worried. The words got stuck in my throat. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell her everything, but I was so afraid. Mom, are you still there? Yes, honey, I am here. Are you okay? You sound very weak. It is just that. I have not slept well. It was not a lie. I had not slept well for weeks. Mom, I am coming by to see you today. I do not care if I have meetings. I canceled everything. No, honey, do not. I am on my way. I will be there around 2 in the afternoon. And this time I want to speak with you alone. Do you understand me? There was something in her tone that made me feel a spark of hope. Yes, daughter, I understand. When I hung up, I realized that Jessica was standing in my bedroom doorway. How much had she heard? Good morning, Eleanor. Who were you talking to so early? With Sarah. She is coming today. Jessica's expression hardened. That is great. Then I better hurry with the grocery shopping. She shot out of the house an hour later. I saw her through the window loading the car with bags and more bags. Everything that was left in the kitchen she was taking with her. It was obvious what she was doing. She was going to leave the house empty before Sarah arrived. That way she could say she had just gone to the market, that the food was at her mother's house for safety. Any excuse. I dragged myself to the kitchen when Michael went out for a run. I needed to see with my own eyes. I opened the refrigerator. Completely empty except for a carton of old milk and half a rotten head of lettuce. The pantry was the same. Nothing. Just dust and empty shelves. I felt my knees failing. I grabbed the counter so as not to fall. I looked at the clock. 5 hours until Sarah arrived. 5 hours that I felt like an eternity. I sat in one of the kitchen chairs. Because I did not have the strength to return to my room, I stayed there, looking at the table where so many times I had shared meals with my family, where I had celebrated birthdays and Christmases, where Arthur had taken my hand and told me he loved me. And I waited. I waited for my daughter to arrive and finally see what I had not had the courage to tell her. I waited for someone, anyone, to rescue me from this nightmare my life had become. The hours passed with an agonizing slowness. I stayed seated in that kitchen chair, without strength to move, feeling the world spinning around me. The wall clock marked every second with a tick-tock that resonated in my ears like drums. 11 in the morning, noon, 1 in the afternoon. Every minute felt like an hour. Jessica returned close to 1 o'clock. She entered like a tornado, carrying just 2 small bags from the supermarket. "I am back, Eleanor," she announced with a singing voice, as if nothing were wrong. "I brought some little things, so there is food when Sarah arrives." She opened the refrigerator and put the bags in. I saw what she had bought: a head of lettuce, some tomatoes, a package of tortillas, cheap cheese. Nothing substantial. Nothing that explained the dozens of bags she had taken out of here for weeks. "Where is all the food we had?" I asked with a weak voice. Jessica closed the refrigerator and looked at me with that fake smile I already knew so well. "What food, Eleanor? This is what there is. You know food runs out fast when there are 3 people in the house. But I saw you leave with bags and bags." "Oh, Eleanor, again with your confusion. See, that is why I told Michael you need to see a doctor." I did not have the strength to argue. I simply looked at her, and she held my gaze with a coldness that made me shiver. In that moment, I knew that she knew exactly what she was doing, and she knew that I knew. It was a power game, and she was convinced she had already won. Michael entered the kitchen, sweaty from his run. "Hi, Mom, what are you doing sitting here?" "Your mom feels sick," Jessica answered before I could open my mouth. "She is dizzy. I told her to lie down, but she is very stubborn." My son approached and touched my forehead. "You do not have a fever. Did you eat something today?" I shook my head. "Why not, Mom?" "Because there wasn't any." "Because she says she isn't hungry," Jessica interrupted again. "You know how she is." Then she complains she is weak. But she does not want to eat. It was useless. She controlled the narrative completely. Everything I said would be seen as the confusion of an old woman. "I am going to make her some tea," said Jessica, filling the kettle with water. "And something light to eat. Let's see if she feels better before Sarah arrives." Michael helped me up. "Come, Mom, I will take you to the living room. You will be more comfortable there." I sat on the sofa, that same sofa where Arthur and I sat every night to watch television. Michael stayed a moment with me. "Mom, I know it hasn't been easy for you having people in your house, but soon they will take off the cast and you will be able to return to your normal routine. Jessica and I will leave, and everything will go back to how it was before." I wanted to tell him that nothing would ever go back to how it was before, that his wife had been torturing me, robbing me, planning my death. But I only nodded. "Yes, son, not much longer now." Jessica brought me a cup of watery tea and 2 saltine crackers. "Here, Eleanor, this will be good for your stomach." She put it in my hands and left. I looked at the crackers. 2 saltine crackers after days of eating almost nothing. It was like mocking someone dying of thirst by giving them a drop of water. The doorbell rang exactly at 2:05 in the afternoon. My heart leaped. It was Sarah. I heard her voice from the entryway. "Hi, Michael." "Hi, Jessica. Where is my mom?" "In the living room," answered Michael. "She is not feeling very well today." Sarah appeared in the living room doorway, and when she saw me, her face went completely pale. "Mom." Her voice trembled. She approached quickly and knelt in front of me. Her eyes scanned my face, my body, my bony hands. "My God, Mom, what happened to you? You are skin and bones." She touched my cheeks, my arms, as if she could not believe what she was seeing. "I am fine, daughter," I whispered. But my voice sounded so weak that not even I was convinced. "Fine? You are not fine." Sarah stood up abruptly and turned toward Jessica and Michael, who were standing in the living room entrance. "What did you do to my mother? 3 weeks ago she was fine, and now she looks like she hasn't eaten in months." Jessica took a step forward with that expression of fake concern she had mastered so well. "Sarah, your mom hasn't wanted to eat. We prepare all her meals, but she, lie." The words came out of my mouth before I could stop them. Everyone looked at me surprised. "It is a lie. Sarah, she takes all the food to her mother's house. She only gives me leftovers. I have gone days without eating." The silence that followed was crushing. Jessica let out a nervous laugh. "See, Sarah, this is what we were talking to Michael about. Your mom is confused. She says things that make no sense." But Sarah was not paying attention to Jessica. She was staring me straight in the eyes, and I held her gaze, silently begging her to believe me, to please believe me this time. "Mom," she said slowly, "when was the last time you ate a substantial meal?" "I do not remember," I admitted, and tears began to roll down my cheeks. "Maybe 2 weeks ago, maybe more." Sarah stood up. Her expression had changed completely. There was no longer confusion on her face, only a cold and controlled fury I had never seen in her before. "Jessica, can you show me what there is in the kitchen to eat?" "Of course, I just went to the market. I did not ask you when you went to the market. I asked you what is in the kitchen now." We all moved toward the kitchen. Sarah opened the refrigerator. I saw her jaw tighten when she saw how empty it was. She closed the door and opened the pantry. Empty, too. She turned slowly toward Jessica. "Explain something to me. Exactly 2 days ago, on Monday, I came here and dropped off $3,000 in groceries." $3,000. "Jessica, I filled this refrigerator and this pantry to the top. Where is all that food?" The color disappeared from Jessica's face. We ate it. In 2 days. 3 people ate $3,000 worth of food in 2 days." Sarah's voice was rising in volume with every word. "Besides, what is that I heard? That you just went to the market? Then why is there no food?" "Sarah, you are misinterpreting everything." Jessica started, but my daughter interrupted her. "No, I am not misinterpreting anything. I see my mother malnourished, weak, barely able to keep herself seated. I see an empty kitchen 2 days after I personally filled it, and you tell me that everything is fine. Do you think I am an idiot?" Michael tried to intervene. "Sarah, calm down. Mom has been eating." "Only what? Only what, Michael? Only that she decided to starve to death for fun? Look at her. Look at her closely. Does that woman look like someone who has been eating?" My son looked at me. He really looked at me for the first time in weeks. I saw the exact moment when the realization reached his eyes. The shock, the confusion, the horror. "Mom," he whispered, but before he could say anything else, Jessica let out a nervous laugh and said something that changed everything. "You know what? You are right. I took all the food from my family. So what? We are here sacrificing ourselves, taking care of an old woman who does not even thank us. My mother also needs to eat. No? And look, Eleanor." She turned toward me with a cruel smile. "Since we are being honest, it is time for you to start paying me rent. $500 a month for living in your own house while I take care of you." The silence that followed was deafening. Sarah stood completely still, looking at Jessica as if she had just seen a monster materialize in front of her. And then, with a calm that was scarier than any scream, my daughter said, "Get your things out. You have 1 hour to get out of this house." The world seemed to stop for a moment. Jessica stood with her mouth open, processing Sarah's words. Then she let out an incredulous laugh. "Excuse me? Are you kicking us out? You do not live here, Sarah. You have no authority to. This is my mother's house." Sarah's voice was like cutting ice. "And my mother is sitting there, starving to death thanks to you. So yes, I have all the authority." Get your things out. Now. Michael took a step forward. Sarah, wait. I think you are overreacting. Jessica was just trying to. Trying to what, Michael? Sarah turned toward her brother with a fury I had never seen in her. Trying to starve our mother to death? Trying to steal the food I bought? Trying to charge her rent in her own house? That is what she was trying to do. My son opened his mouth, but no sound came out. He looked at Jessica, then at me, then back at his wife. For the first time, I saw doubt in his eyes. Jessica, is it true? He asked, with a trembling voice. You took the food to your mom's house. Jessica crossed her arms defensively. I took some things, yes. My mother also has needs, Michael. And your mom barely eats anyway. It is a waste to have so much food here. A waste. Sarah's voice went up another octave. Look at my mother. Look at her closely. Does it seem to you that food is being wasted on her body? She is malnourished. She probably needs to go to the hospital. She turned toward me, and her voice softened. Mom, when was the last time you ate a full meal? And please, tell me the truth. All eyes landed on me. I felt the weight of that moment, the importance of finally saying the truth out loud. It has been almost 3 weeks, I whispered. The day before you came the last time. Jessica filled the refrigerator that day so you wouldn't suspect. But as soon as you left, everything disappeared again. My voice broke. I have been eating dry bread, saltine crackers, some days nothing. And when I tried to tell you, she answered the phone before me. Sarah closed her eyes, and I saw her hands closing into fists at her sides. When she opened them again, there were tears of rage rolling down her cheeks. Michael, you knew something about this. My son shook his head violently. No, I swear I didn't. I was working. I thought Mom was fine. His voice broke. He looked at Jessica with a mix of betrayal and horror. How could you? Oh, do not start with the drama, Jessica raised her hands with exasperation. Your mother is exaggerating everything. She ate, just not as much as she says. And besides, do you want to know the truth? I am sick of being here. Sick of taking care of an ungrateful old woman who spends her time complaining. Sick of living in this old and small house. If you want me out, perfect. I will leave with pleasure. Wait, said Sarah, taking out her phone, before you go. There is someone I want you to talk to. She dialed a number and put the phone on speaker. It rang twice before an older woman's voice answered. Hello, Mrs. Brenda? Asked Sarah with a sweet and dangerous voice. This is Sarah, Eleanor's daughter. I have her daughter Jessica here. We want to talk to you about something. Jessica's face went completely pale. Sarah, no. Oh, hi, my dear, Brenda responded with a cheerful voice. How is Eleanor? Jessica tells me she is very well taken care of. You know what, Mrs. Brenda? I have a question for you. Your daughter has been bringing food to your house. There was a pause. Well, yes, Jessica is very generous. She always brings me little things from the market. Little things. Sarah let out a bitter laugh. Ma'am, your daughter has been bringing you my mother's food. My mother, who is 68 years old, who is recovering from a fracture, has spent weeks without eating because your daughter steals the food from her house and takes it to you. The silence on the other end of the phone was absolute. What? No, that cannot be. Jessica told me that. What did Jessica tell you? Pressed Sarah. That the food was hers? That she had bought it? Because I am going to tell you something, Mrs. Brenda. I left $3,000 in groceries in this house 2 days ago. $3,000. And today I arrived and there is nothing left. Nothing. And I found my mother so weak she can barely keep herself seated. So tell me, where do you think all that food is? I heard a ragged breath from the other end. I didn't know. Jessica told me they were going to waste the food, that Eleanor couldn't eat that much. That it was better what? That it was better to steal it? Sarah practically spat the words out. That it was better to let an elderly woman starve to death so you could eat for free? I didn't know. Brenda's voice now sounded desperate. I swear I thought Eleanor agreed. Jessica told me she gave her permission. Sarah turned toward Jessica with the phone still on speaker. Did you hear that? Your own mother says you lied to her. What else have you been lying about, Jessica? My daughter-in-law had a face red with shame and rage. This is ridiculous. I do not have to stay here listening to this. She tried to leave the kitchen, but Sarah stepped in her path. You are not finished. Your mother is still on the phone. Don't you want to explain to her how you also tried to charge my mother rent? In her own house. Rent. Brenda's voice rose in pitch. Jessica, what is she saying? Jessica grabbed the phone from Sarah's hands. Mom, hang up. Don't listen to them. They are trying to. But Sarah snatched the phone back. Mrs. Brenda, your daughter demanded $500 a month from my mother for taking care of her while she lived for free in her house and stole her food. And when my mother refused, she threatened to put her in a nursing home. Oh, and one more thing. I heard Jessica tell you on the phone that they were waiting for my mother to die or be institutionalized to keep this house, to sell it. You knew that too. The scream that came out of the phone was deafening. Jessica, is that true? Mom, no. They are lying. They are trying to. Shut up. I do not want to hear you. My God, what shame. What shame you bring me. Brenda was crying now. Mrs. Eleanor, are you there? Please forgive me. I didn't know any of this. If I had known that my daughter was treating you like this? I approached the phone, although I barely had the strength to talk. It is okay, Brenda. I know you didn't know. It is not okay. I am just one woman. None of this is okay. Jessica, return all the food you have in this house right now. Do you hear me? Right now. And afterward, I do not want to see you again until you get on your knees and ask for forgiveness from that lady for what you did to her. Jessica was trembling with humiliation and rage. This is what? Asked Sarah coldly. Fair? Deserved? Because from where I am standing, this is less than you deserve. She turned toward Michael, who was standing by the wall, completely pale and in shock. Michael, I am going to give you a choice. You can leave this house with that woman, or you can help me take care of our mother. But if you choose to stay with her, I do not want to see you near Mom ever again. My son looked at me with tears in his eyes. Mom, I didn't know. I swear to you, I didn't know anything about this. If I had known. I know, son, I whispered. I know. Michael turned toward Jessica. There was something broken in his expression. Something I knew would never be fixed again. Pack your things. We are leaving. Michael. Jessica's voice sounded small for the first time. Are you seriously going to believe her over me? I saw my mother, he said with a hollow voice. I saw the empty kitchen. I saw the truth. And I cannot be with someone capable of doing this. He turned toward me. Mom, I am going to help Jessica pack and we are leaving. But afterward, I will come back. I will come back and we are going to fix this. I promise you. I could not answer. I only nodded while tears ran down my face. The next hour was controlled chaos. Michael and Jessica went up to pack their things, while Sarah helped me sit back on the sofa. She brought me a glass of water and knelt in front of me, taking my bony hands in hers. Mom, why didn't you tell me sooner? Why didn't you call me and tell me what was happening? Her eyes were full of tears and pain. I was afraid, I admitted with a cracked voice. I was afraid you wouldn't believe me. Jessica made me seem confused, senile. She told Michael that I said things without sense, and I thought maybe she was right. Maybe I was exaggerating everything. Sarah squeezed my hands. Mom, never doubt yourself like that again. You are not confused. You were abused. That woman manipulated you, isolated you, and almost starved you to death. That is not in your head. That is real. We heard heavy footsteps on the stairs, suitcases being dragged, doors closing with violence. Jessica came down first, with 2 enormous suitcases. She did not look at me. She did not even look at Sarah. She simply went out the front door with her head held high, as if she were the victim in this whole situation. Michael came down after with the other 2 suitcases. He stopped in the living room entrance. Mom, his voice was barely a whisper. I am sorry. I am so sorry. I wanted to be angry with him. I wanted to scream at him how he hadn't noticed, how he had allowed this to happen. But when I saw his shattered face, I could only see my son, my Michael, who had been manipulated as much as I had. I know, son, I said softly. I know. He nodded, wiped his eyes with the back of his hand, and left. We heard the car start and drive away. The silence they left was deafening. Sarah sat next to me and hugged me carefully, as if I were made of glass and could break with any sudden movement. And maybe it was true. Maybe I was made of glass in that moment. "It is over, Mom," she whispered against my hair. "It is over now." But it hadn't ended. Not completely. Sarah took out her phone again. "I need to call a doctor. You need urgent medical attention." "No, daughter. I am fine. I just need to eat something and—" "Mom, you are malnourished. Severely malnourished. I do not know how much damage they did to your body these weeks. Please let me call someone." Her voice broke. "Please." I didn't have the strength to argue. Sarah called her personal doctor, explained the situation, and half an hour later, a doctor named Dr. Evans was in my living room with a medical bag. He was a man of about 50, with a serious but kind expression. He examined me in silence for several minutes. He took my blood pressure, listened to my heart, checked my reflexes. His expression became graver with every second. "Mrs. Eleanor," he said finally, putting away his stethoscope, "your blood pressure is dangerously low. You have clear signs of severe malnutrition. Your body is in a critical state." He turned towards Sarah. "She should be in the hospital receiving intravenous nutrition. She has lost dangerous muscle mass. Her immune system is compromised, and she runs the risk of suffering cardiac arrest if she does not receive adequate treatment immediately." Sarah's face crumbled. "Cardiac arrest? Doctor, are you saying my mother could die?" "If she does not receive appropriate medical attention, yes, the human body can only withstand so much time without adequate nutrition. And from what you tell me, your mother has been in this state for weeks." He looked at me with a mix of compassion and concern. "Ma'am, why did you allow this to go so far?" I didn't know how to answer. How to explain to this stranger that I had let my own family torture me because I was too afraid of seeming dramatic, because I didn't want to be a burden, because at some point I started to believe that maybe I deserved what was happening to me. I didn't think it was that serious," I murmured finally. Dr. Evans sighed and turned towards Sarah. "I need you to take her to the hospital now. I'm going to call ahead, so they have everything ready. This is not something we can treat here." Sarah nodded, already dialing on her phone. "I'll call an ambulance." "No," I said suddenly, finding my voice. "I do not want an ambulance. I do not want that spectacle. Please, daughter, you can take me." Sarah looked at the doctor, who thought for a moment and nodded. "Okay, but go now. There is no time to lose." 10 minutes later, Sarah was helping me into her car. Every movement hurt. My legs barely supported me. She settled me into the passenger seat with so much care that new tears welled up in my eyes. "Okay, Mom, we are almost there. Hang on a little longer." The way to the hospital was blurry. I remember the streets passing, the lights, Sarah's voice talking on the phone with someone. "Yes, my mother. Severe malnutrition. Dr. Evans already called. We are on our way there now." I closed my eyes, feeling more tired than I had felt in my entire life. For the first time in weeks, I allowed myself to let go of all control. Sarah was here. She would take charge. I could rest. "Mom, do not close your eyes. Mom, look at me, look at me." Sarah's voice sounded distant, desperate. I forced my eyes open. "I am fine, daughter, just tired." "I know, Mom. I know you are tired. But hang on. Please, hang on. We are almost there." I saw tears rolling down her cheeks while she drove. "You cannot leave me. Mom, not now. Not like this." We arrived at the hospital, and everything became a whirlwind. Wheelchairs, nurses, doctors asking questions I didn't have the strength to answer. Sarah answered for me. My mother was a victim of abuse by neglect. She hasn't eaten properly in weeks. Her daughter-in-law was stealing her food. I heard the murmurs of shock, the medical orders, the sound of machines being connected. They put me in a bed. I felt the prick of a needle in my arm. "IV fluids," they said, "nutrients." They would run tests on me. I had to stay admitted at least 2 days, maybe more. I nodded to everything, too exhausted to fully process what was happening. Sarah stayed by my side, holding my hand, stroking my hair like I used to do with her when she was a child. "Forgive me, Mom," she sobbed. "Forgive me for not realizing sooner, for not coming more often, for believing them when they told me you were fine." "It is not your fault, daughter," I whispered. You didn't know, but I should have known. I should have seen the signs. I should have. Sarah, I interrupted her with the little strength I had left. You saved me. You arrived just in time. That is what matters. I fell asleep with her hand in mine. It was the first deep sleep I had in weeks. I didn't dream of hunger or Jessica or empty kitchens. I dreamed of Arthur, sitting in our garden, smiling at me like he used to. Hang on, my love, he told me. It is not your time yet. They still need you here. I woke up hours later. It was night. The hospital room was in semi-darkness, illuminated only by the soft glow of the monitors. Sarah was asleep in a chair next to my bed, uncomfortable but without letting go of my hand. I looked at the IV dripping into my arm. I felt the deep weariness in my bones, and for the first time in a long time, I felt something resembling hope. I had survived. Against all odds, against weeks of silent torture, I had survived. And not only that, the truth had finally come to light. Jessica had been exposed. Her mother knew. Michael knew. And I no longer had to carry that poisoned secret alone. A nurse entered silently to check my vitals. "How do you feel, Mrs. Eleanor?" she asked in a low voice. "Tired," I admitted. "But better," she smiled. "That is good. Your levels are improving. The IV is doing its job." She wrote something on her chart and left as silently as she had arrived. I looked at Sarah sleeping. My daughter, my warrior. She had come and fought for me when I no longer had the strength to fight for myself. She had confronted Jessica. She had exposed her lies. She had called her mother to publicly humiliate her. She had done everything I should have done weeks ago, but didn't have the courage to do. I thought about Michael, my son. I wondered where he would be now, what he would be thinking. If Jessica would be manipulating him again, convincing him that everything had been a misunderstanding. Or if he had finally seen her true nature and was processing the betrayal. A part of me still loved him, still wanted to forgive him. He was my son, after all. But another part of me, a wiser and more wounded part, knew that our relationship would never be the same again. I closed my eyes again, letting the IV do its work, letting my body finally begin to heal. The road back would be long, not just physically, but emotionally. I would have to rebuild my strength, my confidence, my sense of safety. But for the first time in weeks, I felt it was possible. I spent 3 days in the hospital. 3 days of constant IVs, small and controlled meals, visits from doctors and nutritionists explaining the damage my body had suffered. "You are lucky to be alive," a young doctor named Dr. Lewis told me on the second day. "Another week in those conditions, and you probably would have suffered organ failure." Her words froze my blood. I had been so close to death and hadn't even fully comprehended it. Sarah practically lived in that hospital room with me. She brought clean clothes, made sure the nurses attended to me well, and when she wasn't doing that, she was sitting by my side telling me stories about her baby to distract me. "Mom, Leo is already trying to walk. He holds onto the furniture and takes little steps. You have to see him. He is the most beautiful thing in the world." Her eyes shone when she talked about her son, and I felt a pang of sadness realizing how much I had missed by being trapped in that nightmare. Michael came to visit me on the 3rd day. He entered the room alone, without Jessica, with a gaunt face and red eyes as if he hadn't slept in days. Sarah tensed immediately when she saw him. "What are you doing here?" she asked coldly. "I came to see Mom," he answered in a low voice. "I need to talk to her." Sarah looked at me, waiting for my signal. I nodded slightly. She sighed. "You have 10 minutes, and I am staying here." Michael approached my bed with slow steps, as if he feared I was going to disappear if he moved too fast. "Mom," his voice broke. "I do not know how to start apologizing. There are not enough words for what I did, or what I didn't do. I should have realized. I should have seen what was happening right under my nose." Tears began to roll down his cheeks. "You were my responsibility, and I failed you in the worst way possible." I looked at my son, this 40-year-old man crying like a child, and I felt a mix of emotions so complicated I didn't know how to process it. There was pain, disappointment, betrayal, but there was also love, because he was my son, my Michael, the boy I had carried in my arms, the young man I had seen graduate, the man who had formed his family. "Where is Jessica?" I asked finally. "At her mother's house," he answered, wiping his eyes. "Me. I moved into a hotel. I cannot be with her after what she did. I do not know if I can ever look at her the same way again. He sat in the chair next to my bed. Mom, the police want to speak with you. Sarah told them what happened, and they said what Jessica did could be considered elder abuse. They could press charges. The room went silent. Sarah looked at me expectantly. Mom, you should do it. That woman tortured you. She left you to starve to death. She deserves to go to jail. But I wasn't sure. Did I really want to go through that process? Interrogations? Trials? Seeing my humiliation exposed publicly? I need to think about it, I said finally. I cannot make that decision right now. Michael nodded. I understand. And whatever your decision is, I will respect it. He took my hand carefully. Mom, I was also a victim of her manipulations, but that doesn't exempt me from responsibility. I lived in that house. I should have seen the signs. I should have questioned why she always left with so many bags. I should have asked you how you really were instead of assuming everything was fine. His voice broke again. I was a coward and a bad son. You are not a bad son, I said softly, although part of me was not completely sure of those words. You were naive. You were manipulated. But you also chose not to see what you didn't want to see. I saw how my words hit him like punches. You are going to have to live with that, Michael. And I am going to have to learn to trust you again, if that is possible. I understand, he whispered, and I will do whatever is necessary to regain your trust. Whatever, Mom. The time it takes. He stood up slowly. I am going to pay all your medical expenses, and I am going to repair any damage Jessica caused in your house. And when you get out of the hospital, I will hire a private nurse to help you until you are completely recovered. You cannot say no. Please, let me do at least this. I looked at my son, so desperate to redeem himself, and nodded. Okay. I saw the relief in his eyes. He leaned in and kissed my forehead carefully. I love you, Mom. Never forget it, even when you are angry with me. I love you with all my heart. And he left, leaving Sarah and me in a heavy silence. Do you believe him? Asked Sarah after a moment. I want to believe him, I answered honestly, but I do not know if I can. Sarah nodded. I do not trust him either. Not yet. He is going to have to prove himself. And as for pressing charges against Jessica, I know you think I should do it. Yes, I believe so, because if there are no consequences, she will continue believing she can do whatever she wants without paying the price. She was right, of course, but I was so tired, so exhausted from everything. Let me recover first, I asked her. Later we will make that decision together. Sarah squeezed my hand. Whatever you say, Mom. But I am not going to let this stay like this. One way or another, Jessica is going to pay for what she did to you. That night, alone in my hospital room after Sarah finally agreed to go rest at her house, I thought about everything that had happened, about how I had allowed them to treat me like that, about all the times I could have said something and didn't, about all the times I accepted crumbs when I deserved a full banquet. Why had I allowed it? The answer was complex and painful. Because I was afraid of being a burden, because I had been taught all my life to be kind, not to cause problems, to suffer in silence rather than inconvenience others. Because after Arthur's death, a part of me had stopped believing I deserved to be treated with dignity and love. I had become small, invisible, willing to accept anything just not to be completely alone. But I didn't want to be that woman anymore. I didn't want to be the old woman who accepts abuse because she is too afraid to defend herself. That woman almost killed me. Almost allowed Jessica to steal not only my food, but my life, my house, my dignity. And if something good was going to come out of this nightmare, it had to be a new version of me. A stronger version, braver, less willing to disappear to make others happy. On the 4th day, I was discharged. The doctors gave me a long list of instructions. Small meals every 3 hours, vitamin supplements, follow-up appointments every week, sessions with a nutritionist. And consider also speaking with a therapist, suggested Dr. Lewis. What you lived through was traumatic, not just physically, but emotionally. You need to process that with a professional. I nodded to everything. Sarah packed my few belongings and helped me dress. My hands still shook a little, but I felt stronger than when I had arrived. The IV and constant meals had worked wonders. I was still dangerously thin. I still looked sick, but there was color in my cheeks again. There was life in my eyes. When we arrived at my house, I stopped at the entrance. For the first time in months, I felt afraid to enter. This house, which had been my refuge for so many years, was now stained with the memories of what I had suffered here. "Are you okay, Mom?" asked Sarah, noticing my hesitation. "Yes," I lied. "I just need a moment." We entered together. The house was silent. Michael had kept his word. He had cleaned everything. He had repaired a faucet that was dripping. He had filled the pantry and refrigerator with healthy and nutritious food. He had even left a note on the kitchen table. "Mom, I hired a lady named Diane who will come every day to help you. She starts tomorrow. I love you, Michael." I walked slowly through every room, reclaiming my space, reminding myself that this was my house. Mine, not Jessica's, not Michael's. Mine. When I arrived at my room, I sat on my bed and finally let out all the tears I had been holding back. I cried for the lost weeks, for the pain, for the betrayal, for the version of myself I almost lost forever. Sarah sat next to me and hugged me while I cried. "It passed, Mom. It passed. And never, never am I going to let anyone hurt you like that again. I promise you." And I believed her, because my daughter had shown that when it came to protecting me, she was fierce, relentless, exactly what I needed. The following weeks were of slow reconstruction, not just of my body, but of my spirit, of my sense of who I was beyond being a victim. The lady Michael hired turned out not to be named Diane, as the note said, but Diane, a Dominican woman of about 50 with a contagious laugh and firm but gentle hands. She came every morning at 8, prepared my breakfast, made sure I took my medicines, and stayed until the afternoon. At first I resisted her help. "I can do it alone," I insisted when she tried to help me dress or bathe. But Diane simply looked at me with those wise eyes and said, "Mrs. Eleanor, accepting help does not make you weak, it makes you human." And little by little I learned to let someone take care of me without feeling shame for it. Sarah came almost every day, sometimes with little Leo in her arms. Seeing my grandson, that baby with huge eyes and toothless smiles, filled me with a joy I had forgotten I could feel. I held him carefully, still weak but stronger every day, and sang him the same songs I had sung to his uncle and mother when they were babies. "Mom looks better," Sarah told me every time. And it was true. Every day that passed, I recovered a little more weight, a little more strength, a little more of myself. Michael came too, although his visits were more tense, more loaded with guilt and uncomfortable silences. He brought flowers, he brought fresh fruit, he brought apologies that I accepted but still could not completely forgive. "How are things going with Jessica?" I asked him one afternoon, almost a month after leaving the hospital. His face shadowed. "I filed the divorce papers last week. She is fighting them, of course. She wants half of everything. But I do not care. I just want her out of my life forever." "Do you regret it?" I asked, needing to know. "Marrying her? Every day." He looked at me with tired eyes. "But above all, I regret not having seen who she really was before she hurt you. That I will never forgive myself for. Mom." I felt a pang of compassion for my son, this broken man trying to pick up the pieces of his life. "Someday maybe I can forgive you completely," I told him honestly. "But that day has not arrived yet, and it is okay if it takes time." He nodded, accepting my words without protest. "I will take all the time you need. I am not going anywhere." And he kept his word. He kept coming, kept helping, kept demonstrating with actions that his apologies were genuine. Slowly, very slowly, I began to believe that maybe our relationship could heal. Maybe it wouldn't go back to being what it was, but it could become something new, something more honest. 2 months after leaving the hospital, I finally made a decision about Jessica. I called the police and filed a formal complaint for elder abuse and theft. Sarah accompanied me to the station, holding my hand while I told my story to a detective named Detective Miller, who took notes with a serious expression. "You have a solid case, Mrs. Eleanor," he told me when I finished. "We have the medical reports documenting malnutrition. We have your daughter's testimony who witnessed the state of your house, and we have the accused's admissions. We are going to proceed with the charges." I didn't feel satisfaction when they told me. Only a deep exhaustion and a relief that finally I had had the courage to make Jessica face consequences. "What is going to happen now?" I asked. "There will be an investigation, possibly a trial. You will have to testify. It is not going to be easy, but we will be with you every step of the way." I nodded. I had already come this far. I could go to the end. The legal process was exactly as exhausting as they had warned me. Lawyers, statements, court dates that were postponed again and again. Jessica hired a lawyer who tried to paint me as a confused old woman who had misinterpreted her daughter-in-law's good intentions. But the medical records didn't lie. The photos Sarah had taken of my gaunt body and the empty kitchen didn't lie. The recorded call with Brenda admitting her daughter had brought her my food didn't lie. 6 months after that horrible afternoon, when Sarah found me dying of hunger in my own kitchen, Jessica accepted a plea deal. Guilty of elder abuse and theft. 2 years of probation, 500 hours of community service, and a permanent restraining order forbidding her from approaching me. It wasn't prison, but it was something. It was justice, even if it was imperfect. The day they signed the agreement, Sarah and I sat in my living room drinking tea. "How do you feel, Mom?" she asked me. I thought for a moment. Relieved, tired, but also free. For the first time in a long time, I feel free. Sarah smiled. "I am glad. And you have to know something, Mom. The way you handled all this, the strength you showed, makes me admire you more than I already admired you. I didn't feel strong," I admitted. "I felt weak, scared, pathetic. But you survived. And when they gave you the opportunity to give up, to let this remain unresolved, you chose to fight. That is what defines strength, Mom. It isn't having no fear. It is having fear and moving forward anyway." That night, alone in my house after Sarah left, I stood in front of the bathroom mirror. The woman staring back at me was no longer the skeleton I had seen months ago. I had regained weight. There was color in my cheeks. There was a shine in my eyes. I was still 68. I still had wrinkles and gray hair, but I also had something I had lost during those dark weeks. I had dignity. I thought of Arthur as I often did. I wondered what he would have thought of all this. He probably would have wanted to kill Jessica with his own hands. But I also think he would have been proud of me for finally finding my voice, for finally defending my right to be treated with respect and love. The months turned into a year. A year since that afternoon when Sarah saved me. A year of therapy, of nutritious meals, of reconnecting with friends I had neglected, of learning to live alone without fear. Michael and I rebuilt our relationship slowly, brick by brick. It never went back to being what it was, but it became something more mature, more honest. He had learned a painful lesson about trusting blindly, about not questioning what seemed too convenient. And I had learned that a mother's love does not mean accepting just anything. Diane became more than a helper. She became a friend, someone with whom I shared coffee and laughter, someone who reminded me every day that I deserved to be taken care of. "Mrs. Eleanor, you are a warrior," she would tell me. "Many people in your situation would not have survived. But you did. And that is something beautiful." One spring afternoon, exactly a year and 2 months after that nightmare, Sarah organized a family cookout at my house. She, Leo, who was already walking and speaking in short sentences, Michael, Diane, and some of my friends from the bridge group. We prepared a huge meal. Rice, beans, grilled chicken, salads, desserts. The table was full to overflowing, and I sat at the head, looking at all those faces I loved, all those people who had supported me on my road back. "I want to propose a toast," said Sarah, raising her glass. "To Mom, to the strongest woman I know, to someone who faced the worst and came out the other side not only alive, but wiser and braver." Everyone raised their glasses. To Eleanor. I felt tears running down my cheeks, but this time they were tears of happiness, of gratitude, of peace. I ate with an appetite, enjoying every bite, savoring not only the food but the moment. The conversation flowed around me. Laughter filled my house, and for the first time in a long time, I felt completely at home in my own skin, in my own life. That night, after everyone left, I sat in my garden under the stars. The air smelled of jasmine and wet earth. I closed my eyes and breathed deeply, filling my lungs with life, with possibility, with future. I had survived. Not only had I survived, I had bloomed again like a plant everyone believed dead, but that with the right care gave flowers again. And while I was sitting there in the quiet darkness, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Gratitude. Gratitude for Sarah, who saved me. Gratitude for my body that resisted when I thought it couldn't anymore. Gratitude for having found my voice when I thought I had lost it forever. And gratitude for having a second chance to live, really live, on my own terms. The story of what happened to me didn't end with a perfect happy ending. There were still difficult days. There were still nightmares. There were still moments when I saw a grocery bag and felt a knot in my stomach. But there were also good days. Days where I laughed until my stomach hurt. Days where I played with my grandson. Days where I simply existed without fear. And that, finally, was enough.